Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting Vobes show. I'm Richard Vobes. Hello. Welcome to the show. It's the 22nd of June 2020 from the back room of a terraced house in jolly old Worthing at the foot of the South Downs, the edge of the English Channel. This show comes beaming to you wherever you happen to be on the internet. And it's lovely to see you out there in the Vobosphere, already tuned in and eager on the edge of their seats, waiting for something dramatic and exciting to happen. Is Ernie the Milkman, the lovely Julia. We have Ramiboo, Days of Yore, Ed Loud, Jen's Allotment Adventures, Ron Langley, we've got the lovely Judith, we have Peter Lowry and Andrew Norris, Stephen Gully, good evening to you, Glastonbury Gabriel, hello. And more coming every second, which is absolutely marvellous and as it should be. Tonight's show, we have 3 delightful videos to play in, which is great. And also, I want to talk about the Internet of Things. I was watching a podcast on the old interweb earlier today, and it was talking about driverless cars. And does that take away our, well, how shall I put this? Does it take away our agency? If we hand over driving a car to automated stuff, does that take away our decision making? And are we all becoming more like sheep? But the Internet of Things, it's that thing when the fridge tells you run out of milk, or the washing machine tells you need some more powder or it needs a service. What do you think? The internet age, here we are. We've all been in lockdown. We've all had this time at home. Some of us have got to go back to work. Others think that it would be better to carry on working at home. I don't know where you are in this scenario. I can't continually stay in. I have to go out and make my video. I don't have to, of course. Everything is a choice, but this is the way the Bald Explorer earns his money, by traipsing over the South Downs or exploring villages and landscapes, heritage and nature. So one actually has to go out and then come back and do the editing and what have you. But some people will be thinking that the new normal is the best thing. Is it? Is it? So the Internet of Things and ways of doing things, do you think maybe we don't have to go flying anymore? That Zoom, a word that I'd never heard of other than a recording device that I used to use, is now a sort of go-to term for things like Skype. In my day, it was Skype, but that seems to have been fallen down by the wayside. What do you think? The Internet and the Internet of Things, the Internet of everything being, telling us things and doing things. And what about the, I know we've mentioned this on the show before a few times, those things, I'm not going to mention its name because it'll set them off in your house, but those things that I'm going to call mine Bryony, and you talk to it and you go, hey Bryony, play this piece of music, or hey Bryony, turn the lights down 100 degrees. I would like to know, what do you think about this world that we're living in? The phrase that came through my, that gripped me is everyone's thinking, oh, we've got to be progressive and we've got to change things and we've got to go up with things. And I thought, well, and the phrase was, well, if something is adequately okay and working, maybe we don't need to change it. What do you think? I am a traditionalist. I do like tradition. I'm not quite so convinced that the progressive all the time, because I never quite know where we're progressing to. Where is it going? Where is it taking us? What is the direction? There's obviously some things that have come along, like the internet, that have been useful, but there's a lot of things that perhaps are not quite as useful as they appear. After all, what happened when people were given laptops, for example? Instead of going to the work and commuting to work and spending 2 hours reading the paper or reading a good book or reposing by peering out of the window and relaxing or have a sleep, it actually meant that people could work for an extra 2 hours on the journey there and 2 hours on the journey back because they had a means of doing that. Did that make them work less hours? I'm not sure. Maybe it did for some, but for others, it seems to have pushed up the workload. Anyway, the Internet of Things is my subject. Let's switch on the phone lines if anybody wants to have a chat with me about it. 07934746790. Let's have a look and see what people are saying. We've got Ed Loud going, bar, 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 sheep. Yes, are we all following in the sheep? I did a 10-mile hike, says Tim Williams, around the Quantocks yesterday, but forgot to make a video. That's very easy to do. I tend to... well, I've managed to remember to bring the camera. I tend not to step outside without my camera attached. Mike Stevens says people are talking to each other more now than before the lockdown. Is that true? Is that true? Are people... I'm not questioning it. I'm not saying for one moment that you're lying. I'm just saying, is that a fact? Is that really... people are talking to themselves more because what? Because they're... And when you say they're talking to themselves, do you mean talking over the internet or actually... because they're at home, they're having conversations? I was talking to a lady yesterday about the situation of lockdown, and I was saying how was it for you as a married couple, and this lady said, well, at first it was a nightmare because my husband was under my feet all the time. He wasn't used to this situation, but as the weeks progressed, they sort of got through this. And actually they were having civil conversations like they would normally have had, but it was just that the change of pace, I suppose. Linda Kane says, hello, everyone. And here now with supper on my lap. Well, a plate on my lap. Is there nothing on the plate? Are you just eating air, Linda Kane? I'd like to know. I cooked some bread, actually, myself earlier this evening, but I did remember to take it out, and I did have the crust off one end, and it was delicious. Lovely bit of bread. Turbo Stream says, I'm not a number, I'm a free man. Thank you very much. Number 6. We are living in a prison, says Michael Angel. Be seeing you, Turbo Stream. Oh, yes, I think that's what the prisoner used to say, didn't he? Enjoy your supper, Linda, says Andrew Norris. Talking of sleep, says Stephen Ruff, I suppose a certain nursery rhyme is now banned. Oh, what, the one with sheep? Yes, I suppose that's probably not good. I'm a traditionalist too, says Lisa Ramibu. And of course, lots of people will have different versions of what that means, I suppose. And it depends what sort of tradition, how far back you want to go, which is true. Are you against advancement in science, says Mike Stevens. Am I against advancement in science? Well, I don't think advancement in science is a bad thing. Of course, the more we understand about the world around us, I think that is good. I think it's how the science is then applied and also how it's sold to us as an absolute necessity. A lot of these things I don't think are a necessity and don't make us any happier. And my worldview is that while we are on this planet for whatever length of time it is, presumably we want to be as happy as we can be and as kind and friendly with each other as we can be. We have a phone call. Let's put on my phone of heads and see who's there. Hello to you, calling the Vobes Show.
Hello to the Vobes Show, and hello to all the listeners.
Hello to you, Ed. How goeth it with you, dear boy?
Well, it beeth round and squidgy, especially my head.
Oh, dear. Your hair must be growing quite fast now.
Yes, I haven't shaved it since Monday, so I'm hoping to have enough hair to slot a few new scenes into some videos where I have hair that were filmed several months ago.
Oh, marvellous. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So the internet...
I almost had one in today, but never mind, internet problems.
Oh, dear. Sorry about that. Well, let's hope we don't have it on the show today. So Internet of Things is what I'm grasping at today.
Yes.
And improvements and all things like that. What do you think, Ed?
Well, I'm all in favour of scientists and boffins trying to make things better, and that should never stop. And the better we can make things, the better I think it is. However, it doesn't mean we all have to adopt it. And I think, especially in this country, there's often a rush to adopt the newest, latest thing when the thing you've had for 5 years did the job perfectly well. And that goes for the internet as well as all manner of things. even down to sort of big national infrastructure things and military procurement and things like that. My favourite example is how we got rid of the Harrier jump jets when America, the most rich country in the world, was quite happy to keep using them for a few more years. And
What do they have instead of the Harrier jump jet then?
well, we were supposed to be getting the F-35B, known as the Lightning II. However, it wasn't ready on time, so we got rid of our beloved old Harriers, and we had nothing ready to pick up the slack.
So are you saying that the armed forces of the Western world got rid of a thing they deemed as obsolete before they had the replacement?
Well, just this country. America was clever enough to keep using them.
Right. Oh, I see. I mean that's barking anyway, isn't it? Just to
exactly.
That's like selling your house before you buy the next one, and suddenly there's a delay in the house, and you go, where do I? Well, hang on a minute. I'm supposed to. I'll have to sleep rough for a bit, or get a caravan, or live in a car, or.
I'm much the same with technology. I wouldn't sell my computer to go and get a new one. I would get the new computer, even if I have to wait a month extra for another payday. I'll save up that extra bit of money, get my new computer, get it all set up on a separate desk, and still have the old one there as a backup until I know the new one is working. And I feel we're much like that with the Internet of Things. Sometimes, we might want our fridge connected to the Internet. Well, why? I mean, surely you've got to go to the fridge and you can check what's in the fridge while you're there. If, however, you're running a catering business, great. Perhaps that's really, really useful. Half the things that pop up and I see advertisements for, I think, well, what is the point in that?
Yes.
Like voice activation. Is it really that difficult to press number 10 on your remote control, or to pick up your mouse and point an arrow somewhere?
I'm dubious about the voice activation stuff, except that where I concede this, with one eye and big stubby fingers on a phone that I'm still not used to having to press buttons where there's no actual buttons, just pictures of buttons. I'm still not used to that, really.
I think it's good on my little mobile device. I do use it occasionally.
I dictate texts and things, or even emails, and that's very handy, especially when I'm out on a walk and I can't see the screen because the sun's on it, and I can say, "Hi Ed, it's Richard. Will you call in on the show tonight and contradict everything I say? Cheers, it's Richard." Then that's very handy.
Yeah, that's very handy, and I do the same thing. I'm not very good with touchscreen, to be honest. I was a very late adopter of touchscreen, and also with all the visual impairments in my family and my mother being paralysed down one side, I could totally see how that's useful.
Yes.
How I don't see it's useful is for the average person to just play a song on their computer. I mean, it's so easy to just click a button if you're an able-bodied person like me, to go and click click a button. So I think sometimes we're in a hurry to adopt.
Well, I mean, I know that the lovely Julia has one of those devices, and you can be in the middle of washing up and you want to sing a song, and so you can just holler out to the gadget the name of the song, and in 9 times out of 10 it will be on the playlist. There is the annoying time when it doesn't recognise it, but and I get that that's quite useful. But I don't
see why everything needs to be connected.
No.
If you find it useful, that's great.
Yeah, but my worry is that we're creeping to be lazier and lazier and doing less for ourselves.
Yeah,
and I think that suffering, and I mean that in the most glib way, to actually go over, take out an LP out of the sleeve and put it on the record player and put the start, doing something gives something more gravitas and gives it more respect because you've actually done something, I think, than calling out into the ether and something happens.
I won't keep you much longer. I just had a couple more points. The first one was basically backing up what you just said there. I think for some people, and I feel they're a minority, this Internet of Things, when new things come out, can be a good thing. I think the rest of us shouldn't rush to adopt those things. We should see how they pan out with the people who need it the most. And then maybe 5 years down the line, we'll all adopt it. And the other point was using the example of Japan, which is a very technologically advanced country when it comes to computers and things. They're probably beyond us. And they're actually very slow to adopt new technology for the sake of adopting new technology. They're very quick to adopt it if it's useful and it actually does good purpose. But they were still using floppy disks a decade after we got rid of them because, they still did the job. If you had a small amount to save, just a few Word documents, why not use a floppy disk? And I built computers for a living at one point, and I didn't see a floppy disk drive for probably the last 5 years I was building them. But in Japan, they were still using them. So I think you don't have to always have the newest, latest gadget to sort of prove that, oh, look what I've got, it's amazing.
Yes.
All you have to prove is what you can do with that gadget.
Yes, true.
You might have a GoPro and make an amazing film, but you could have a £20,000 camera and not make that film any better. So it's more about what you do and how you're using technology.
Yeah, totally agree. It does. I mean, I think I've told this story before. When I was at a cine club, there was those people who bought the latest gear, and the stuff they made was just so boring and dull because the cameras used to do it all, and these films went on for about 20 or 30 minutes of their holiday, and there was no interest. And then the guy who had no money and a wind-up cine camera did a 3-minute piece, which he edited and spliced and all that. And it was terrific. Held your attention. You were all going, "Oh, I wish that was longer. I wish that was longer." And and it just goes to show, money isn't the way, but happiness is the thing that you're aiming for.
And I think Andrew Norris proved that the other day with his wonderful video, the one previous to the last one.
The panorama animation thing.
Mind-blowing that was. And my last point was just to point out the dangers of everything being interconnected, because it's much like people.
Yes.
If you get a contagious problem with one person, we're all close together and connected, it will spread. If you have all your devices on the same network,
yes,
and that network goes down or it gets hacked or there's a virus, does everything get that device? If are you connecting your mobile phone to your Wi-Fi that's connected to your PC, and then your mobile phone's connected to your car? Can someone then put a virus in your car? So we should be very, very careful about connecting things without thinking, and also about redundancy. We should always make sure we have a redundant way of doing something. So,
oh yes, I mean that's the truth.
Yeah.
The truth is in that is when you go to the bank and you go and say, "I'd like to draw out £100 or whatever," and they say, "I'm ever so sorry, the computer's down." You go, "That's fine, okay, I don't mind that. I'd like to draw out £100 of my own money, if you don't mind." They say, "Well, no, sorry, the computers are down." That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. But presumably you have a contingency plan because you have my money in your bank. Now go out the back into the shoe boxes you've got there and take out my money so I can... No, we can't do it. Yes, you can, because you've got my money. And this is where
on the head there.
That's where I get very annoyed that you can have all this, technology, but if you haven't got the what did you call it? A redundancy plan, so that you can still go, okay, if this doesn't work, we can still operate this way.
You wouldn't build, for example, going back to the Harriers, a modern fighter. That's an old fighter jet, but a modern fighter jet, fly-by-wire. We're talking post F-16 for aircraft buffs. You wouldn't build that with just one wire connecting the controls to the control surfaces. You would have 3 or 4 different wires going different routes.
Right.
So that if you get hit with a missile or a bird strike,
yes,
you've still got the controls going from another direction.
Those damn
pigeons.
pigeons.
Life is very much the same.
Those damn pigeons having a bird strike.
Yeah, somebody should stop the pigeon.
Yeah. Somebody should catch the pigeon. Maybe Dick Dastardly's around. Anyway, lovely to talk to you, Ed.
Go, yes. Lovely talking.
You take care.
Take care, bye.
Bye-bye. So there we are, contingency plan. I think that's a brilliant notion. I've always had that argument with them. Surely you can just take my money. Oh, no, you can't take the money out. You can't take the money out. Ever so sorry. When technology goes wrong. Let's have a quick look at some of the comments coming in, and then we'll play our first video, and then somebody else can give us a call and tell us that technology is the best thing since sliced bread. Stephen Ross says, I still play my vinyl albums. Yes, it's interesting how the interest in vinyl has come back. There's a certain pleasure in actually doing something or seeing mechanical things. I think we suddenly, once you take things away, we start to appreciate those in a way that perhaps we just took things for granted at the time, which is very true. It doesn't mean to say that you would necessarily want only to rely on vinyls, because it is hard to take that step backwards. Surely training models aren't used much. The same with training model. The usage goes on working models. I think that's a conversation which I have just jumped into without any prior warning. What else have we got? Lots of 19 on can't be. I'm still playing vinyls. The government were going to introduce a surveillance program years ago, but then came along Facebook and they abandoned their idea and invested in Facebook, says Mike Stevens. There's a thing. Platforms is a thing that I slightly different on the Internet of Things. But platforms, I'll leave you with this thought before we go to our first video. Maybe we can talk about this afterwards. Platforms, it's interesting. I remember when Facebook came along and everyone was getting pages on Facebook, and I resisted and resisted and resisted. And eventually I did go on Facebook, and then I started to, a couple of years down the line, I started to delete all my posts because I was aware that everything I'd put on Facebook was open for public scrutiny years after the initial, oh, I'll share this, went up. And I started to delete everything. And so, as you may be aware of me, I only really post my videos, purely because that's where the audience is. But my argument when Facebook came in is, why were people so eager to jump onto Facebook, a social network, when the World Wide Web was just that already? If you had a web page, you could link to another web page. And it seemed to me, and it still does to a degree, that you've got websites within websites, and all the time you put your stuff on somebody else's website, as we've seen, you can now be deplatformed or kicked off or whatever. Whereas if it's your own website, you can't get kicked off. So you could say whatever you like on your own website, on your own blog, as it were. But people, masses of them, decided to go on to somebody else's website and then create their own little account on this website. But they don't own that account because they can't stop the website, in that case Facebook, from saying, do you know what, don't like you anymore, poof, and kick you off. Never quite understood that. I understand that it's easier to connect with people and share things, but actually all of that is possible from your own web page. And if everybody had just set up their own web page, you know, you could keep stuff, you could archive it differently, you could do so much more. Maybe we can talk about that at a later date. However, let's go into the video box and have a look and see what we've got in there today. We've got 3 exciting films, and let's start with Barry and Faden, shall we? Because they've gone out to have a look at some very tall trees.
Hello, today we're doing the Tall Trees Walk in Hampshire in the New Forest.
We are. And Faden's sitting on what looks like a poo, which is actually supposed to be a pine cone, I think. Yeah, this forest walk is famous for its large redwoods that were planted in the mid-1800s, which we'll hopefully show you later on in the video.
Oh yeah, and also, if you do want to come here, just be careful because there are a load of ticks here.
There are. The New Forest has the highest population of ticks in the United Kingdom, with the exception of maybe the Highlands. Just like to show you this redwood tree. It's not the biggest one here, but I do like them. I love the colours and the bark. here is a Nootka cypress tree from northwestern America. There's another one that's split into two. And this is a very impressive Norway spruce tree. Not seen many of them in the United Kingdom. There's lots of North American trees and Japanese trees in this forest. Might be able to get a better idea of the scale of this tree. It's quite big. There's Faden.
It's massive.
It is nice and big. Show you some of these redwoods all clumped together. I love the smells here. Just found this really cool fallen tree, fallen redwood. You can actually get into the roots of it.
Let's go.
Let's explore the tree cave.
This is quite cool. That kind of looks like sandstone. I don't think it is though.
No, it's not. It's just the bark.
Yeah, this bit over here. That looks like sandstone, but it's
It
not.
does. This looks like very kind of Midwestern USA colours, isn't it?
Yeah. I could probably live in this.
You could live in it. We'll see you next year. Just found this crater. Wondering if it can be either a glass dump or maybe an air raid bomb crater. Who knows?
I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that notification bell and like and subscribe. And now it's time for the journey back home.
Thank you everybody. Bye bye.
There we go, Barry and Faden, the Anglo-Saxon travelling duo with those amazing Cadbury flake trees. Lovely, lovely to see. Thanks, Barry, for sending those in. Absolutely superb, superb. I was talking to Barry briefly before the show, telling me how to make flatbread, which is fascinating. I want to do that. And talking to that, it reminded me of, I have ordered, and it still hasn't arrived. Look, I'm holding not a giant fish or anything like that. That's not a giant fish, giant stickleback. My mixer, and I rang up the firm today to find out when this mixer is coming along, and they said they still don't know that when delivery is coming, so it's still up in the air. This is the Vision mixer that I want, so that I can do stuff in the kitchen, like a bit of live cooking on the show. Been promising this for ages, and this wonderful gadget that we raised the money for is still on its way. Cool, blimey. Interesting looking at the comments out there. People talking about Facebook, that it started off from Friends Reunited, that sort of thing. Which I thought Friends Reunited was quite a good idea if you'd lost people and you were looking around for them. But Facebook, has become a national passion. Not a national, global passion, isn't it? People are addicted to this. And I don't know what kind of world we would be in if we hadn't have had Facebook or that social media. I mean, there's one thing being connected, but there's another one that you need the endorphin hit of every post you put up. You have to check to see how many likes you've got and what that might mean to you. Here we are. We've got another phone call coming in. Let's find out who that is. Hello to you, calling in on the Vobes Show.
Sean James Cameron from Central London.
Thank you very much, Sean James Cameron from Central London. What can I do for you on this?
I think Facebook started initially and the success of it was because people could find out whether somebody else was single or married.
Ah, so a bit of a dating app.
Yes, because it started off in the universities first, and that's why. Because people were asking each other, is that girl available? Is that guy available? So that's why he started it off. So people could
Because you used to have that status, didn't you, that you used to put whether you were single, married, or whatever.
Yeah.
Do they still have that? I guess they do. I can't remember. I mean,
Yes.
Yes,
they do.
Yeah. So it's an interesting platform. So how long have you been on Facebook?
Oh, about 12 years, I think.
12 years a slave to Safebook.
But because I then moved into social media as a job for TV channels, that's when I learned very quickly. When a TV channel wants to see the results, well, it's very easy to get the results because when I worked at the Daily Mail, they were spending £5,000 a week on Facebook ads.
Were they? How long ago was this?
About 4 years ago.
Right.
So you can manipulate the figures for whatever you want the results to be. But I remember when the internet, you could put something into Google, and within 2 or 3 minutes, you could find a subject that you didn't have any idea about, but you got interested in.
Yes.
Whereas these days, it just tells you what you sort of already know.
Yes, that's true, because you could lose an evening, couldn't you?
Oh,
you could lose an on Google. You just put in, and then one link would take you somewhere else, and you go down a rabbit hole, and it made research fun, but a bit non-eventful because 2 or 3 hours have gone past, and you've gone. Do you know I've learnt about the Aztecs over there, and I've gone over to the Australian. I've gone down this, and actually all I wanted to know was why pencils have got lead in them.
Well, I discovered that I quite liked snowboarding, even though I've never been on one.
Yes.
But I got sucked into this trap. But one of the bugbears I've got over the last few months is people have seemed to become very passive. They'll put a question in a Facebook group saying, can somebody tell me when to plant my broad beans? And because you don't give them the answer for 24 hours, they have a go at the person who owns the page. And
Do
it seems
they?
to be, people seem to have forgotten that they've got a brain and they can go off and find an answer by themselves.
Yes. Well, I often do get that, somebody will say something in a response to a YouTube video of which I may have gone somewhere. I haven't necessarily spoken about this thing, and they'll say, "Oh, Richard, the castle behind you, why was that built?" And I'll think, I have no bloody idea, but there is Wikipedia or, Google or whatever. You could look it up, is what I think.
I can go,
but what I don't tend to tell them that because it seems to be a bit...
I can go one better. I can put a video up on planting my broad beans, 10 minutes, and I'll get a question. When's the best time to plant broad beans? And it's like, well, watch the bloody video.
Yeah, watch the video.
I was going to swear then, but I managed to stop it.
I'm glad you did.
Get the beeper out.
That's it. Beep! No, it is interesting. I think you're right about passivity. People are becoming more passive. Television. I remember reading a book years ago, and I think I mentioned this in the Naked Englishman the other day. I remember reading a book, and when I was about 18, it was a sort of self-help book, one of those sort of things, a positive, inspirational book. And actually, at the time, I didn't think it was doing anything, but it all went in. It all went in, and is part of why I keep myself busy all the time. And in this, there was this thing about when people come home from work, they sit down, they've been working, and they sit in front of the television at 6 o'clock. And then at 11:30, they turn the television off, and they've sat down for almost another 6 hours. And they've let the people on the screen have all the fun. live their lives. And so they've done a job that they may or may not like, but they've sort of then said, well, that's it. I hand over my emotional, my happiness, my interests to a screen, especially with soaps. When people follow soaps.
Well, this takes me down the route of years ago, like only in the 80s and through the 90s, you could sit and watch a half-an-hour show. It could be entertaining, but you learned something.
Yes.
Whereas these days, you can sit for half an hour and you don't learn a thing.
Well, you'd think how many programs, like the cooking shows, as my ex-girlfriend friend Harriet used to say, well, it's food porn. And they would show you food and how to make food that you're never in a million years ever going to make. And you sit there week after week after week watching food that you're never ever going to make because it's sort of, haute cuisine or whatever it is. And that to me was like, are you ever going to make this, Harriet? No. Oh, why are you watching it? It's like, well, whereas as you say, if you watch something that says, here's how to make beef stroganoff, and you think, okay, I might make beef stroganoff because actually they make it look simple and what have you. And I might go and give that a try.
Well,
which is where YouTube came in.
Yes. Just before we go on to that, I've just done a week at the BBC as a researcher, and everybody else in the office had that attitude of if they couldn't find it on the internet, they didn't know where to go.
Yes.
The art of thinking, right, I need to go to the British Library to go and find a book and find the information. If they can't get it on through Google, then right, we'll have to scrap that item.
Oh, really? Well, I imagine there's a certain time constraint as well with sending somebody to the British Library or whatever, and if it's not on Google, these days, everything's there, isn't it? But
yes, but they don't bother to fact check
things. No.
They'll just see something and it'll go into the brief. Right, that's it. That's what.
And here's a question then. Here's a question for you. They don't bother to fact check, which I think is quite true because there's so many. We can argue about whether things are biased or not, and there's so many fake history going out, and you never know who's telling you the history. But do you think that this is the result of things like YouTube? Because I don't have time to fact check, and I make mistakes all the time, and luckily most of my viewers will go, well, Richard's on his own. He's doing this pretty much on his own. He's churning out the videos. He's not a historian. He's going to get the facts wrong. And we will tell him, this place is actually, it was 1832, not 1831, et cetera, et cetera. And there's that sort of symbiotic relationship that you have with the audience, most of them, who will go, he won't mind if I just, correct him there, or you got that bit wrong. It wasn't here, it was over there. There are those who just want to then show off they're not, oh, do you know, you've got that so wrong, you're such an idiot, it's over here, you mentioned it was 20 years ago, it was 5 years ago, you're so stupid, why haven't you checked it out? And, one of those where you...
Well, TV still looks down on YouTube, even though YouTube, to a certain extent...
has bigger audiences.
Is saving their skin at the moment.
Yes.
They still look down to it, and my prediction is once things get back to normal, all these people they've had on the daytime TV shows who are YouTubers, they will be dropped like stones.
Yes. Yeah.
And they'll all go back to the way they used to do before. But their problem is speed.
Yes, speed. So that's
all about speed.
That's why I was thinking that maybe because we're now coming into we're so used to watching so much content. Imagine, just consider how much. There's me bunging out a little walk every day, and then there's billions of others putting out stuff, and we're sitting there with our phones going, oh, I've watched that, right, what can I watch now? Oh, I watched that, what can I watch now? And you're sort of going, oh, isn't there anybody making any more? I wish he would make some more bloody stuff because I've watched 25,000 of his this just in the last 10 minutes. I want to watch more. And you can't make stuff of any quality, and people are just sort of accept, oh, it doesn't matter whether it's true or it's factual. Is it entertaining? Has it entertained me? Am I bored now? Oh, I'm bored now. Yeah, no, turn that off. I'm bored. Oh, this is interesting. There's a cat. Look, that's a cat.
The thing that I picked up in just going back in for 7 days is things are faster than they were.
Yes.
But ultimately, people don't care.
People don't care.
I queried a script because I knew for a fact that it was 1974, not 1976, and it was like, we haven't got time, just get on.
Really? And in an environment like that, you just don't.
Was enough.
Yes, you don't feel. If that's the case for me, I couldn't work in that environment. I mean, I do try to make mine as truthful and factual as I can, and a lot of what I do when I'm out and about, I might be speculating, and I often say, I don't know, maybe this is what happened, and this is what I try never to give the impression I am an authoritative on anything, because I'm not. Hence, it's an explorer. People often make the mistake and think, well, Richard, you're trying to educate us, and you go, well, not really. I'm just telling you what I read in a book yesterday, and I can't remember all of it, and I'm doing my best, and I'm not the BBC.
Can I just correct? I've just seen a comment. I think it's important to point out that this is factually incorrect. You do not need a TV license to watch live streaming on YouTube.
Right.
Just because somebody's put a comment saying that you have to,
right?
And you don't.
You don't.
And there's so much fake news going on that it's, and I don't blame the audience, but it's just very easy to see something. And like at the start of the lockdown, I was getting really frustrated when people were saying you're only allowed out for an hour a day. If you go back to the legislation that came in,
there was no time.
There wasn't anything there regarding time.
No.
It was the minister came on the next morning and said, well, if you're pushing me, I say an hour. The next day, that goes in the newspaper, and that becomes fact.
Yes. Well, listen, I mean, that's the story is, I think, well, it could get into, I didn't really want to get into this argument, but very, very briefly, I think between the government and the newspapers, one seems to be tipping the other one, and then the other one sort of changes it. So it's almost like where we're now going down to 1 meter. So there's a rumor that it's happening. So the newspapers say it's going to happen. And then the government feel, oh, we're obliged to do that now. So there's this sort of continual thing, whereas the truth and the reality, whether that's good, bad or indifferent, does seem to be completely out of the water. The mainstream and the government seem to have just scared each other, and it's just gone worse and worse and worse.
Yes.
And yet...
I will give you an exclusive before I go.
Okay.
That's Life is coming back onto the TV.
Is it? That's Life?
And Esther's going to be an executive consultant.
Oh, right. How interesting. Not the presenter, obviously, because she's getting on a bit now, I suppose.
Yeah. No, but she's going to... Well, a consultant in sort of the sense of she'll probably go in for a day a week.
Right. But so what do you think? That's Life coming back. This is where I think they make rods for their own back, don't they? To me,
yeah. Who's
going to watch it that really remembers it? And those that used to like it are going to hate it because it's not what it was. It's, That's Life was a 1970s program, wasn't it? Born in the 70s.
Well, let's not go into that big debate, but the BBC's fundamental problem at the moment is that it's hemorrhaging viewers,
yes.
And people are going online and they aren't going back to the BBC. But that's a whole bigger debate.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, lovely to talk to you, Sean.
Anyway,
look after yourself. Take care.
That's Life.
That's Life. Bye-bye. There we go. That was Sean, inside information on the world of television. And, going back to the Internet of Things, here we are. A lot of people would not be without their alternative media. And the alternative media, whether it be truthful or not, as I was sort of implying, it's whether it entertains you and whether you think it's credible. That seems to be the answer. And, people can just pack out lies left, right and centre. But if you think it's credible and it's entertaining and it sort of goes in one ear, goes out the other, I don't know where I would go if I wanted to know something 100% true. Probably to books and older books, I guess, because I feel that in the old days the standards were higher. It may not be true, but that's how I feel. I'm going to read your comments, but we're going to put on a video in the meantime. So let's go into the video box. which we do by doing, well, I can't remember how we do that now. It's not working. We do that, but why aren't you going in there, you swine? Hang on. If I come out of that and I press that, there's an order to everything. We're going to find out what happened when we took a fish out of water, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Croser, you know, our lovely northerner from up north. He has been taken kicking and screaming out of the north and dropped into the capital city. Is he happy there? What does he think? Let's find out. Robert Croser is in London.
Hello, where am I today? You know where I am. Look behind me over my left shoulder. Sacrilege. Professional northerner like me in London. Who would ever thought? Anyway, I'm here with family. They're behind me, but as you can see, that's Big Ben, that's the River Thames, obviously. I'm down here for a couple of days with family. I don't even know what I'm looking at, but I'm sure it's impressive. There we go, that's one of the bridges. It's my older brother and older son behind me. I'm just going to do a quick one because we know we only like it 2 minutes. I'm just going to pan round again, and if it's wobbly I couldn't give a monkey's because I'm on my phone and I know it's not 4G, 4K. I do apologise, so I hope you can all see it. It's a lovely day down here, but being a professional northerner like me, I much more prefer mountains, I much more prefer lakes, lonely valleys, rivers, you name it. This is okay to visit, but I wouldn't want to live here. Many of you dear watchers that do, you have my deepest sympathy, you really do. But hey ho, it's our nation's capital, so you've got to see it while you're here, I suppose. I'm going to let you go now. I'm just going to pan round once more. Look, there's Big Ben, the river. Oh look, there's a riverboat. I think that's something to do with Parliament behind. There's another bridge there. There's my younger son and brother. And I'm going to say goodbye. Just pan round once more. Up there is the London Eye, believe it or not, in the trees. But if you've seen it already, you don't need me to tell you anymore. So I'm going to say ta-ta and see you all soon.
Robert Croser in London. He looked very happy, didn't he? He did look like he loved it there. I think he enjoyed. Actually, to be honest with you, I have the same feelings. Really, I great to visit once in a blue moon, but I couldn't stick it in London. It's too cosmopolitan for me. It's too busy. It's too busy. Give me the same things that Robert was asking, mountains, open spaces, countryside, green. But they serve their purpose. I wouldn't want them to be knocked. I wouldn't want places like London, these big cities, to be flattened and all of that. I wouldn't, because I'm obviously in a minority, which is fantastic. Let lots of people be in a big clump like London. Let them stay there. That's great, because it means, people who appreciate the countryside, there's fewer of us and we can enjoy it more. Love it. Linda Cadman, yes, I've seen your message twice about Off the Beaten Track. I have seen it. I haven't had a chance to mention it, that I'd seen it, but yes, I have seen it. You've got it from a lovely second-hand bookshop. Got the message. Thank you. And well done to you. Hope you enjoy it. By the way, the next video on that theme, I think is going to be not... I'm not necessarily doing them in order, so I think I'm going to be heading westwards, but I'm not going to say any more than that because I'm just working out my route. So there we go. Agree with you, Robert. No way could I live in London, says Barry Stevens. I used to live in that there London, missing it now, lad, says Mark Donny McLeod. Sean's allotment says, I've been to London for 16 years, have started to move out within the next 4. That's great. You can see Robert can't wait to go home, and I can't blame him. Exactly. I mean, obviously these places aren't for everybody. Some interesting comments there about That's Life. I noticed floating your boat there says, geez, that's life. No wonder we all watch Netflix and YouTube. Yeah, absolutely. And on the point about the license fee, Sean was absolutely right, because I recently, 3 weeks ago, got rid of my TV license, and I rang them up and went through the process, and I asked them pointedly if I watch YouTube on my telly, on a smart telly connected to the internet, is that okay? They said, as long as you're not streaming BBC content, it doesn't matter. It can be a BBC programme on YouTube that's pre-recorded, as long as it's not streaming the BBC. So, technically, that comment is incorrect. Well, that's what I was told from the horse's mouth. And the great thing is, he said, we will contact you in 2 years' time to see if you've changed your mind. And I said, well, that's fine. So used to people ringing me up, double-glazed salesman, and have I had an accident and all this sort of nonsense. I don't mind, and they say, no. We've got another call coming in. Let's find out who that is and have a quick word. Hello to you, caller on the phone.
Hello, caller.
Hello, caller.
Hello, caller.
Hello, Richard.
Hello. Oh, you figured it out. I got my voice a bit wrong. I was going to do my nosy neighbour impression, but I went wrong.
Oh, you went nosy neighbour. Hello, mate. What's going on?
Yeah, that's him. That's him. I won't wait for next time.
Oh, good. Let's hope so.
You were asking at the beginning of the show about how modern technology is advancing us and how we feel that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I've got to say, for me, one of the... I want to call this a modern invention. The mobile phone has been a godsend, in my opinion, to me.
Yes.
Especially the smartphone.
Right. Okay.
And the reason for that, when I'm at work, obviously I can have to call my office to get all my jobs when I finish a job and so on. In the days of past, it used to either be payphones or even CB radios at one point, before mobile phones became mainstream, which used to cause quite a bit of problems because the office couldn't contact me and say, we've got an emergency breakdown, we need you to go now.
Right.
So
just tell me, do you get provided with a business phone, a phone that's purely for your business, or a phone that is both business and pleasure?
I've been provided with my work phone, which is a business phone, I guess you would call it.
And do you use that for personal as well?
No, I don't, because it's completely different to my personal phone.
So you can when you come off duty, you can turn it off and go, I ain't going to answer that now.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great, isn't it? But some people, they have to give when I was going out with Harriet, she worked for a number of different firms over the time that I knew her. And a couple of the firms she'd have her own personal phone, and they said, well, that's great, we'll take your number. And they would call her on her own phone in the evening. She's relaxing, having a glass of wine, whatever, put her feet up. She's watching MasterChef, a show that she's watching people cook stuff that she would never cook herself because she's vegetarian, and there they are doing something with meat, and she's enjoying it. And then the phone would go with work, and they would be answering her a question. And I just thought that's where the technology becomes, a bit dodgy, because she couldn't turn off her own phone.
Yeah.
Different if it's a works phone, but she couldn't turn off her own phone because she might want a friend to call up and interrupt her.
Well, yeah. I mean, in that answer, if I was in her case, I would have bought a second phone, literally like your show phone, and just given the work that number, and then turn it off for the weekend. Right.
But the whole point of them taking the number is so that she is contactable, and then she would have been, I was going to use the B word then, but told off at the office, for turning it off if she had, and because some bosses were just really, nasty.
Well, tough. Well, we work for a company like that.
Well, but then you can be made redundant or unemployed or just picked on, or your life, not everybody can stand up to their boss in a way that perhaps, other people could. But
again, you could take it to tribunal. If it's not in your contract of employment that if your work hours are 8:30 to 5:30, outside of those times, you should not be expected to be contacted.
Yes. Difficult. It's very easy to say that. You could take her to a tribunal and all of that. But if you're working for a small business and the small business is and you're a bit in a difficult situation, it isn't so easy to just take somebody to a tribunal. And then if you can't leave because you've got to try and get another job and you need references and, there's a whole load of things that go with. So anyway, I don't want to get into that. So I'm just saying, so the mobile phone to you has been a godsend. And I would, I think that most people would agree with you there because it's no longer a phone, is it? It's a small computer that also makes calls as well as a number of other things.
Well, that's the other thing I found with a smartphone. A lot of the fridges I repair have these electronic controllers which are very, very difficult to work with if you don't know how to get into them. And again, when I first started doing this job, we would have shelves in the back of the van dedicated to schematics and how to get into these controllers, because no two controllers are the same. So you'd have one for one fridge, another for a different fridge.
So you could just now look them up on YouTube, on the internet.
And that's it.
And so you've got the encyclopedia of the world with you, so you can just look things up. Yes, I can. I mean, I absolutely. Yeah. I'm not. What I'm saying. The purpose of me saying the Internet of Things and what have you is not to say all technology is bad, and we celebrate the things. But sometimes we have things which is we're doing it because we can and we don't really need to, or we're going into the world of. Somebody was. Do you remember that film WALL-E?
Yes.
And there's a bit in it where I can't remember the exact story, but he's sort of left behind clearing up mess somewhere, isn't he? And then he ends up on this planet where there's these fat blobby-like people who are looking at screens being floated around, and they don't have to do anything for them because everything's done for them. And so hence they're getting fat because they don't exercise. And they probably actually don't live very long because, they're not using their bodies. And in a sense, I think there's an element of that. That's why I was saying, there's something about getting up and putting a piece of music on as opposed to never getting up out of your sofa. The remote control was the beginning of it for the television. It's like, years ago, when I was a kid, you had to get up and actually tune from UHF. BBC. Oh, there it is. Dad, can you hold the aerial up a bit more? To the left. We constantly having that. And cross-channel interference where we had bits of France coming in on the thing. Oh, look, we got a bit of French coming in, which was a pain. But there was that. Got you out the chair, because it's so easy to sit down and do nothing.
Yeah, well, I remember the house I grew up in, we had metal windows, or window frames. So I ended up taking the aerial from the TV and twisting around there, and I got a brilliant signal using it.
Oh, fantastic.
You can't do that these days.
No.
BBC.
No. Well, that's it. On the digital signals and stuff, it's it would be tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah, with all the different wavelengths and stuff. How interesting. Yeah, so you're standing up for mobile phones. I would agree. I think mobile phones are brilliant. But, like any technology, there is going to be a flip side to it. And, the thing about the fear of the 5G coming along is that people can track you better and know more about you, and your information can disappear quicker and people can spy. And that's always been a thing. People can always track you. But we relying on it, like the track and trace that the government did, where they said, we're going to set up our own unique thing and we'll have our own app and it's going to be great. And then it turned out that it was the biggest flop ever, and they should have stuck with Google and iPhone. And really, that was a bit of a joke, and one could see that coming, really. But then, But if you don't want to be traced, you just not turn the phone on or not use the app or whatever.
Don't carry my phone with me.
Or don't. Yeah, exactly.
Well, funny enough, that's something we've had discussions with at that thing I used to have called work. With the vans, some companies have trackers in the vans to see
Oh, yes.
where employees are. And I knew somebody on another company. I've never had trackers myself, but I knew somebody on another company had a tracker on a van, but he would go to where he was meant to work, leave the van there and go down to golf club.
So they assumed that he was, yeah. So there's ways of
Yeah.
subverting all of this. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I suppose one thing that the virus, the lockdown, has proved to perhaps a number of companies is that whole business of people who in the past they said, well, no, you better come into the office because you can't work at home. We can't rely on you. You won't do the work, will you, if you're at home?
Yeah.
And now, of course, people have gone at home and they have done the work, but they may have done the work to suit their needs because they're bringing up kids and they're looking after somebody upstairs who's not very well and they're doing the washing and they're working, and it's improved. Obviously, not in every case, and I don't want to do sweeping statements, but for a lot of people, actually going back to the office might not be the answer. For some, they may go, do you know what, I want the banter of the office. I want that work environment so that when I come home, it isn't work. And I get that too. But so that's,
Yeah. Well, I remember about 3-4 years ago reading sort of business reports where they were trying to see how well people could work at home. And the result was that people were more productive, not in every case, but on the whole, people were more productive working from home. They got more done in a day working from home.
Yes, I think if people can set their own pace, and if they know they've got to complete a certain number of tasks, they're probably more likely to get through it at home. Because What amazed me is, again, I'm using Harriet as a bit of an example here because she did what I would call, real work, as opposed to me, who does, freelance work here, there, and, a couple of days I'll be working, the rest of the time I might not be working or might be doing some editing or project work or whatever. But she would do 9 to 5. So I would, and one of the things she joined this small firm, and when she joined it, she said, "Oh, we have to get in at 8:30 and we leave at 5." And everybody there, we've got an hour for lunch, but nobody takes it. Everybody only takes half an hour. And I said to her, well, presumably you're going to have your hour, aren't you? Go out for a walk. And she said, well, they're all very smart and switched on and what have you, but I don't feel I ought to. I said, but it's statutory that you have it. You can. She says, I know, but everybody's sitting there munching their sandwiches whilst carrying on at the computer. I said, but that's not. And so she felt duty bound to get into what people were doing, and of course reports came out that you're less effective if you don't have long enough breaks.
Well, up until recently I never used to have lunch breaks at work because of the nature of my job, and I get paid, if I work for my lunch break I still get paid that full, or paid for that hour. So for me, it was never a case that I didn't have long enough breaks. I mean, the trouble is my job's very different from what you would class as most other people.
Yeah, I mean, if you're driving 2 places, fixing something, and then driving somewhere else and what have you, it's a lot different than just sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
From 8:30 till 5, looking at a screen, sending emails, and writing reports or whatever it was that she was doing, and my point was, get out the office, get some, because she said, by 2 o'clock that you've just drained and you're looking at the screen and you can't think, and you're doing unnecessary trips to the photocopier just to get out the chair. And I just think we could get out, have your lunch hour, go for a walk, do something very physical so that you've got fresh air in you, you've revigored, you've taken your mind off the work, and you can come back and do it a bit more fresh. And reports, they surveys, not surveys, but I don't know what they call them. Research had proved that actually the more breaks you have, the more motivated you are, and the less an employer tries to, the more an employer sort of chains you to the desk and tries to get you to work longer hours and harder, actually the less productive you are. So that's that. Anyway, better move on.
Well, I was just going to ask, was she actually paid for that half hour she worked during her lunch break?
No, that was the thing. She wasn't paid for she had the hour, part of her contract was she could have between 1 and 2 for lunch. But she didn't do it, so she works extra hard.
So she worked half hour for no pay, effectively, I think.
Yeah, but it was it wasn't like the old days where you clock in and you clock out, and so you're being paid by the hour. She was just paid, I suppose, for the time that she was there and the work she did. And if she chose to spend a bit longer doing it, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of it, and I can't really speak for her, but I know that, technically she could have had an hour's lunch break, but because everybody else wasn't, she felt, as a new girl particularly, that it would be breaking the mold and everyone would think that she's a slacker. And in an office environment where you're sitting with, say 10 people, you've all got to get on, and you've all, nobody wants someone else to think, well, you're being paid as much as we are and you're taking more time off. And yet it was an unwritten, uncontracted thing. It was a bit odd. But anyway.
Yeah, anyway.
I don't work in an office, thank God. So, anyway, catch up with you soon, Richard.
Yeah, will do.
Take care.
Buddy.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
There we are, Richard Suggett putting standing up for the mobile phone, which I have to agree, the mobile phone is absolutely fantastic. When I go on my walks, I'll download, I could actually have an app with the OS maps on it, but I do tend to get to a page on the website and go, this is the route, get that route, screen grab it, copy it, send it to my phone. I've still got this sort of slightly backward way of doing things rather than just having an app that can do it. Lots of stuff to read. Gonna read all of that whilst I watch the next thing, and then we'll go through those before the end of the show. So this is our last video. So let me just get back into there. And this is Gabriel. This is the last of the Millennium Trail in Glastonbury with, wait for it, some snazzy camera work to finish off, to celebrate with his 360 camera. Fascinating stuff. Here he is, young Gabriel in Glastonbury.
For the many years I've lived here, I've always wondered why anybody would build a house as butt ugly as this one. Answers on a postcard, please. This august pile was Somerset House, headquarters of Somerset County Constabulary and all things plod related in Somerset. Built here as Glastonbury was then centre of Somerset in those days. And that brings us full circle to where we started, with the town hall over there. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll be making some more. To finish off and have a bit of fun, here's some shots I did with my 360 camera.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Gabriel. That's really nice. We're going to miss those. Hope you've got something else up your sleeve. Liked all the I was going to say swanky, but then I thought, is that rude? No, it's not rude, is it? The swanky camera work. Very nice. You don't hear the word swanky enough these days, I don't think. Probably a reason for that. Yeah, so very good. Like that. Lovely. So, hence technology, 360, camera, does all those worry things. But you couldn't do that every day, could you? Because that would drive your audience mad. But it's lovely and done so well. Thank you very much, Gabriel. Look forward to that. If you want to send in a video of where you are and what you've done, it can be very simple. Simple, like Robert was just holding the camera and showing off a place that he happens to be and give us a little bit of a talk. That's absolutely fantastic. Or if you're a bit of a maestro with the editing and this, that and the other, then they are just as well. Welcome to the show. It's lovely to really feature you. You're part and soul of this show. So do send that in. That would be great. Information on how to do it is in the description to my email via the WeTransfer service. They seem to be pretty good most of the time, which is rather great. I wish that we had this mixer thing because I want to try doing some cooking and various other things in other parts of the house to liven up the show so it's not just behind the bench. And hopefully... we did have a question last week when the lovely Julia was on the show and via Skype, and everybody enjoyed that. But somebody said, oh, you've done a walk together and you're not really socially distanced now because the rules have relaxed. And, Julia and I were away in a B&B, non-socially distanced, just as lockdown happened. And the only really interaction that either of us have, funnily enough, is both of us in the same supermarket. And now that we can have these so-called bubbles, most of my family are miles away. So now I'm hoping that we can get the lovely Julia in the studio. It will be a bit odd having the lovely Julia back in the studio because I will have to retrieve her chair. I've got her chair out in the outer office where I do my editing. It's become my editing chair, but she'll have to claim it back. And I need to reset up this microphone here, which is at the moment unattached, as you can see, just sitting there off camera. But that would be good. Anyway, I'll check with her to see if she was, wants to come back and do a show from the studio. With all ModCons, it will be great. So last chance to call the show before we say arrivederci, thank you very much and goodbye. Just trying to work out how to... where's the studio? There it is. 07934746790. It's the technology. We're talking about Internet of Things, I suppose we started with, and we've had an interesting debate about things in Facebook and the usefulness of social media, and I gather that there's a variation of Twitter now. That I was on Twitter for a while. I mean, I'm still on Twitter technically, but I don't tweet other than, yeah, you guessed it, posting my videos. Because it seems to me that's another place that if you put something, you'll get 100 people telling you that you're wrong or nasty effects to it. But I understand there's an organisation that set something up called Parler, I think it's called. I don't know if that's French, but there's another one, an alternative. I thought I'd join up with that and see if I could post my videos on there for the sake of building up an audience as such. But have you looked and have you found an alternative types of the things? I mean, there's for example, there's different types of browsers, but everybody uses Google. But I know there's Ecosia, is it? And have you found them useful and do you use them? Hello to the caller calling old Vobes show.
Good evening, it's a Moment of Murphy.
A Moment of Murphy. Hello, Andy. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. It's day one of I'm now on furlough again.
A day one from what? No longer furlough?
No, on furlough.
Unfurlough. Unfurloughed. You've been unfurled and let back. How was it?
No, I'm on it.
What do you mean you're on furlough?
Yes.
Well, hang on a minute. Were you not furloughed before?
Yes, the end of April, start of May.
Right. So
So
just excuse me for being thick then. So it's a day. How can this be day one if you've been doing it for 10 weeks?
No, I went back to work and then I'm on it again.
Oh, I see. Why? What happened?
Well, they asked for volunteers and I thought, I'll take it.
What, volunteers to go on furlough?
Yeah. Yeah, they asked for volunteers, the company I work for, and they said the rules are you can only do it if you've been on furlough. I think it's due to the rules.
So wait a minute. So you worked. I don't know what you do, but so whatever it is you do, and that's your business. I understand that. But you're on a bit of a thing. So everyone gets. We'll pay you 80% of your wages. Sit at home and have a nice time. Then you go back for a day and you go, oh, this is hard slog, isn't it? And then say, oh, is anybody would like to go home and have 80% of your wages and we'll pay you, and you just sit around and watch the and you go, yeah, I'll have a bit of that. And we'll only have those who've already done it and know what it's like. It's like, blimey, this is a bit of a result, isn't it?
It is, but I know there was some bit of animosity with the company on our group chats that we got. But
what, saying it's unfair that you've got furlough again?
Yeah.
What? But what do you mean? People are jealous that some of you are sitting at home?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not surprised. Does that not surprise you?
Sometimes, but
I mean, I know you may not be being paid your full wage, but you know, if life isn't, if you're not actually right at the where you've got to have every penny coming in, and you can sort of, you know, stop smoking the 60 a day that you do and eating the 250 pork pies and buying every latest U2 album or whatever it is, you know, if you can cut back and live on 80% and do nothing, how that must be, isn't that bliss?
Not really. I found it boring.
Oh, did you? But you were out making videos for the Vobes show. How can it be boring?
To be honest, it's I found getting up today, as I got up at about 10 to 10, and I thought, where's the morning gone? Then
you slept through it, you lazy.
Exactly, and I thought, and then I watched a load of YouTube videos on my phone, and I thought, it's all right, but I'd much rather have been at work.
Is there a project that you can set yourself to do?
I've got like little to-dos I've been doing, but
like, could you know, what is there something that you've been itching to do for years, like learn a language or learn to play the piano or something like that?
I don't have a piano, but
no, it doesn't have to be that, obviously.
No, but I don't know.
There's nothing so what, I mean, if you weren't working as you are, you know, you see, I understand there are people who, it's like my son Billy, when he was young, when he would and he was at school and he left school, I said, what would you want to be, Bill? What are you going to do? Don't know. I said, what do you mean you don't know? You know, then he was exposed to a lot of different things, and he said, oh, don't know, I don't know really, don't know what I want to do. When I was 15 and the teacher came to me and he said, all right, Richard, what do you want to do when you leave school? I said, I want to be an actor or a film director. He said, oh, right, okay. This was a 1970s comprehensive school. And he said, right, okay. But, you know, if you can't be that, what would you like to do? No, that's what I want to do. You asked me what I want to do. I want to be an actor or a film director. Or, better, if I can be in a film that I direct, that would be even better. And so I've always known what I want to do. So I've never understood people who don't want to do. So when Billy was like this, it took me a while to understand. So I do know that there are people like that. But if you could do anything, Andy, what, you know, is there something that you would, oh, do you know, I would love to do this?
I don't know. I'm sat here with my sister. What would you think I'd be best doing?
I don't know, maybe going for walks, because I know that you enjoy that, and if you've got a load of spare time on your hands, you might as well do something that you enjoy rather than just festering, I guess.
Yeah, I know there are a couple of walks I want to do.
What, long distance walks?
Reasonable distance.
Would you? So, like 10 miles or something like that?
Yeah, usually kind of a reasonable distance for me is like between 5 and 9 miles.
Right. So there's no. So I mean, okay. So you got walking as a thing. So you wouldn't think, oh, I know, I want to walk the Pennines. I want to walk the Pennines. Obviously, I'm not going to do it. From
No.
or no, nothing like that. No big challenges.
During our childhood, like we walked the South Downs Way,
Yeah.
so we've already done that. But I guess I quite like to revisit some areas, like because they were very pretty. And there was like other areas which I saw, and they all looked like they were very interesting. I'd particularly like to go back up to like places like Chantry and Tisbury Ring, because with my degree, I've kind of been I've had that come up in some.
So I can't remember. You were doing archaeology or something, weren't you?
Classics, but my uni ties it in with archaeology. So we do, like, my courses are both kind of in the realm of classics and archaeology. I did I did the Celts this year, which was incredibly interesting because we had like the archaeological side of it, and then we had the bit where it was touched upon within the classical world with Julius Caesar
And was this an interest before university, the classics and ancient history and that sort of thing?
Wow. Originally, I originally wanted to go and do actual like modern history. Like I was always really interested in sort of the medieval world and early modern history. Like they were always the pieces that really interested me. And then I went to sixth form, and my college did an archaeology degree. An archaeology A level.
Right.
And an ancient history A level, and I took both of those, and I just fell further in love with that kind of history rather than modern history. I just found it so much more interesting when even further in history, and it's a lot more kind of with ancient history and archaeology. It's not all that you know it. Some of it's like you've really got to. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know the word what I'm looking for.
You can theorise a lot more, can't you? You can speculate and you can use your imagination, where I suppose dry fact that so-and-so went here and this happened there, and it's just a matter of remembering it, whereas you can interpret things and you might make discoveries that...
You can make so many different interpretations
about
that.
So at school, Andy, was there nothing that fired your imagination?
I think back.
I always enjoyed cooking.
Yeah, I did enjoy cooking. I took a GCSE in catering, but I don't know what happened. How I went from that to IT. I don't really know how.
I was always good at it.
Yeah,
Like,
I think it was kind of where I thought I could make a career out of this, and kind of snowball from there.
Yeah, so is it a passion, IT, with you?
I've got technical.
I mean, if anything's wrong with my laptop, I'm just like to Andrew, like,
Yeah.
what can you...
Yeah, I'm not the support desk of our family.
So what do you think about the Internet of Things then? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? You're the person who should have rung in right at the beginning, because obviously this is your sphere.
Like, didn't he say about Twitter earlier on? You just mentioned about Twitter. It's kind of, Twitter's good, but sometimes it can be a bit volatile. Like, honestly, it's like out of the social media, it is the most volatile platform.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to be very careful,
Exactly.
otherwise you get so many different people
To be
accusing
honest,
you of so other
yeah.
things when you meant one thing and they misread it as something else. It's just you've got to be very careful sometimes.
And being honest, it's all good and well having, say, getting your contents of your fridge reordered, but the thing is, would you want it reordered that way? You might want to say, I'll have something else the next week. It would then lock you in a state of dependency. I've got to have this, I've got to have this. And wouldn't it bombard you with groceries. That's the problem. And
Do you
what
think
about-
though? I mean, see, I often wonder when they say the Internet of Things, and you can have the fridge and it'll do this automatically, or you can be on a train and switch your heating on, or turn this on and all. I just think that's the thing we're being sold, but actually, the real thing is to get everybody wired up with all this peripheral stuff, which isn't the real story. That's just the front of house. That's the the flashing lights thing. But actually, if we can get the country, everybody on this, we can eavesdrop, we can listen, we can tap in, we can do things, we can set people up, we've got control. That to me seems to be much more a bigger, more likely why it's being pushed.
True, and it's also it's all good and well, this technology being here, but what happens when it goes wrong? Would it be easy to switch it off and turn it back on again?
And you see it going wrong all the time, because presumably that's what you're tech support, aren't you?
Yeah, to be honest.
So you must know how wrong it goes all the time.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm not being funny. The things like this, you'll have things crash, things go faulty. You still need the physical presence of a human to even operate this stuff.
It's like if you go into like artificial intelligence, like it's gonna get to a certain point where it's gonna work, and then they try and take it another place, and it's just gonna crash.
Exactly.
Like
So would you rely on a Google car?
No.
No,
exactly. I'd rather stick with my my second-hand Toyota Yaris 55 reg.
Good for you.
I'm not giving up my car. I love it.
Excellent.
I love my car. You can at least with a car you can drive now. At least you can hear the engine. You can hear the revs. You can drive it. That's what you want. You don't. Exactly. You can hear it struggle up the hill with an electric car, even with a smart car.
Well, you're all passengers, aren't you? That's the thing. When you're in a driverless car, you're just the passenger. You've lost control. You've given the control to somebody else, and if the car crashes, it's your life in there. Anyway, we better go. Thank you so much for calling in.
That's okay, Richard.
You guys, lovely to hear you, and look forward to another Moment of Murphy video at some juncture.
we're hoping to film one later this week.
Superb. That would be fantastic.
Going to tie in a local site.
Oh, will we like a local site?
And it's going to be a different landscape to what we've done before.
And stop spoiling it.
Oh, I'm just...
No? It's intriguing. All right, take care, you two.
Take care, Richard.
All the best.
You too.
Bye-bye. Bye. There we go. Moment of Murphy coming up very soon. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your calls. Lots of interesting things. Tim Williams says, I don't understand people who don't know what they want as a living. I'm in the same boat. I don't understand people who don't know what they want to do. Well, yes, I can understand people, getting confused about perhaps how you make a living out of something. I mean, it's like, here am I doing this, and I love what I do, and I like talking to people and making the videos and all of that. Whether you can make a living out of it is another thing. But I just belligerently, with tenacity, I suppose, just gone, I'm going to make this work. Come hell or high water, I'm going to make this work, because I've only got one crack at the whip, and I want to do it. But as we discovered, there are people out there who don't know what they want to do, and I just wonder how you get through a day. It's like, I guess that's where television and YouTube and all of that, and we need those people, because otherwise all the videos I'm making, I need people to watch them, I suppose. So there are producers, and then there what is it? There's producers and consumers. Andy Sandow says it's all designed to sell you stuff. Well, I think you're right there. I've lost some of my photos off my tablet. Anyone know how I can get them back? Says Linda Cadman. I mean, there could be a whole load of different ways of doing that. Barry Stevens is agreeing with Gabriel, who said the things in the West have given all the power to large corporations and governments. Yes, that sounds true. Catering versus the IT connection is chips. Yes, become a chippy. That's the answer, Andy. Become a chippy. Ed Loud said, if everyone knew what they wanted to do in life, it would be very boring and everyone would just go through the motions like robots. Oh, I don't know about that, Ed. I'm sure that's not true. However, I do agree that some people fall into professions and find things. You know, when you're at school, you may not know what you want, and then you get exposed to something and you think, actually, this is the thing. And we all go on paths that are a bit like tree roots, aren't they? That you suddenly go, I'm going down here. This is what, oh, no, wait, this interests me. No, this interests me. And we all change our mind and we all change our lives as we get older. We want different things. As the world around us changes, that influences us. There's so many things. But so, you know, with me, I wanted to be an actor and a film director. Now I'm doing a bit of both, but it's not quite how I imagined it would be, but I'm actually much happier. And I'm glad I didn't go into television. I always wanted to get into television. And I spent loads and loads of time to get into television. I made my children's TV series. And I realised how corrupt and how disinterested television really was. And what a bunch of, on the whole, a bunch of shysters. There were some very nice people that I met along the way. But the top people didn't give a monkeys. Anyway, that's it. No idea what I wanted as a career when I left school, says Linda Kane. Photos maybe in the cloud. Kathy says, check your recently deleted folder. Well done, Kathy. That's a good one. And the new normal won't be anything like this, says Michael. I'm not sure that there is going to be a new normal. I think we're going to be having normal very soon. I'm an optimist, so I think things will go back to the normal corrupt world that we once had. Yeah, I think we're already in it. Anyway, I hope you have a lovely evening. Thank you very much. I've got to go do things. Take care, look after yourselves, and we'll see you back on Wednesday. Got a nice longish walk for you tomorrow on the Bald Explorer. And more of our reading the story of English of a Norfolk farm, which was highly amusing earlier today at 4 o'clock. Until then, thank you for watching. It's been so nice to have your company. Take care, look after yourself, and goodbye. Goodbye.